Delighted to say that Becca Hutson is with us to go through some of the stories in the papers. Good morning, good morning. Always a fountain of knowledge.
Oh, I know.
Irrespective of what the subject is.
Jane McDonald.
Jane McDonald.
She has had a wonderful career.
Indeed, I think it'd be quite fun to work on a cruise ship.
But
it's a long time away from home.
And
for me.
no opportunity to switch off because you're just always on the great vessel, aren't you?
It's true.
Can't escape your colleagues.
True. Anyway, what else is happening today?
Well, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time on that Telegraph front page on the hopes that by us scrapping the requirement to quarantine for visitors from the US and parts of the EU, this will then be reciprocated by the Biden administration. And just, do you think that kind of by us lifting and changing our rules, other countries will feel obliged to follow suit? Or do you think the kind of international concern about the Delta variant will mean that they'll say, yep, that's very well that you can have our citizens, but we will still be very strict on UK
I think
travellers?
that the big thing that really matters to lots and lots of people yesterday, or what's going to change, is that British citizens who've been vaccinated elsewhere in the world will actually be able to arrive here without having to quarantine. That's massive. So I've got a friend coming from the United States. Actually, he just arrived yesterday, but his quarantine will now come to an end on Monday. He's double jabbed, but up until then, the government were not recognising whether you've been double jabbed or not outside of Britain. So I think that's really significant. It's not just about tourism, but we were talking about yesterday how important tourism is for the British economy. It's worth 6 times the car industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Massive.
And the Telegraph make the point that obviously this isn't just tourism, but it's also business. So obviously there'll be lots of people in the UK, CEOs, executives, or just employers of people in the States who just haven't been able to get to their offices, haven't been able to, meet their teams for 18 months now. So there is a kind of, there is a sort of significant need to open up that special relationship corridor. It'd be interesting to see what the Secretary of State...
I just realised you asked a question, I didn't even answer it.
No, but that's normally how this goes, so don't worry.
I think the answer to the question...
It's definitely the strategy of chaps to say, we'll give this to you, give it back. So there we go.
I'm sorry.
You asked me questions about Jane McDonald, I come with an answer.
Indeed, and I don't.
What else do we have, Becca?
I've got some really lovely news about the UK sending 9 million unused doses of the vaccine to the developing world. Places like Kenya, Jamaica and Indonesia are going to get really substantial, kind of hundreds of thousands of doses. Obviously, this, the pandemic isn't over until everyone has been vaccinated, and so that includes thinking about kind of the developing world and the global south. So I thought that was a great use of the surplus vaccines. There was at the beginning, there was all this kind of vaccine nationalism, wasn't there, and how, it wasn't going to get shared and we wanted to focus on vaccinating UK citizens first. But I think that's some quite lovely news this morning, that people around the world will be getting access to the vaccines sooner than they would have done.
We could have shared it earlier, maybe, you would say, if it was, we were being really, truly altruistic about this.
I would agree. But I'm glad that we're doing it.
It is interesting, though, just how much the vaccine programme here is massively slowed down in terms of, the number of first doses every day really has slowed down. And actually, whereas elsewhere in Europe, most countries are now really caught up. In fact, I think Spain is now the most vaccinated country in Europe in terms of fully vaccinated people. So it's now ahead of the UK. The EU, after a very slow start, has actually really ramped up its vaccine effort. And we know that Emmanuel Macron, talking about vaccine passports in France, whether it's to go to a restaurant or to a bar or to a cinema, has driven up rates. I think since it's announced, 5 million people have booked vaccine appointments. Maybe something we're going to be looking at here.
Right. A really interesting little story I've got here about online dating and the Olympics. There's always a way that they cross over, I promise. Users on the sort of paid-for version of Tinder, so obviously it's a free-to-use app.
It's a slightly more exclusive
set of users have been changing their location to Tokyo in the bid that they will match or swipe with an Olympic athlete, which I think is ingenious.
I think that's a new way of stalking, isn't it? No?
No, I think it's just, broadening your horizons.
But I think the athletes are going to think, how did you get to Tokyo? Surely, because, we're not allowed to go. So it's a suspicious start to a relationship.
No, I think obviously they'd work that out, but I think it's kind of like a VIP pass, isn't it? Like, it's a kind of more... Because you're never going to find like thousands of athletes in the one place again. So this is a bit like kind of shooting fish in a barrel in a very small space.
Yeah, if you think that your life...
So you're saying instead of... It's not the user pretending to be in Tokyo, the app is allowing you to say, like, let's imagine you are in Tokyo. I see. I wonder what the athletes make of this.
It's called the Tinder passport, yeah. So you could say, if you decided, I just really want to meet someone from Athens, you would just set your location there and swipe away.
In a pandemic, it seems like a silly strategy if you'd like to actually spend time with the person that you match with.
Agreed. But quite flattering that someone would go to the effort of changing their location on an app to find you?
Or a bit stalkerish, I would suggest.
Okay.
I would suggest. I have to say, I think the idea, not being a dating expert myself, I think the idea is that, let's say if you were to go in the old days, if you were to go on holiday to, let's say, Athens, to use your thing, that you would change your settings a couple of days beforehand so that you could kind of meet up with people in Athens.
Oh, wouldn't you just go with, like, a guidebook and some friends rather than, like, a collection of people you've matched with on Tinder?
Holiday checklist, change your dating app location. I thought that was good fun.
Rosie and I have had very different holidays.
I can tell. Have I got time for one more? Or are you leave me out?
Yes.
You've got the next half an hour.
This has been these pictures of Boris Johnson at the memorial for fallen police officers yesterday has caused quite the stir in the newsroom. Here this morning, obviously, everyone kind of had a laugh, didn't they, that he couldn't get his brolly up and it was raining and everyone was kind of laughing. But one of our producers suggested that it was kind of wildly inappropriate that he didn't kind of have the umbrella under control and that it's become this kind of viral moment. Actually, it was a very sad and kind of sombre day.
But I don't think he's set out to...
I imagine not set out, but is it funny that our Prime Minister couldn't control his umbrella at a time when everyone else...
To be fair, I don't know if you can see... If you can hold it up, you're not going to be able to see it, but if you look at the very bottom left, you'll see Prince Charles has got his umbrella up, but Prince Charles has actually got a decent umbrella that's made from a wooden stick and is sturdy, whereas the Prime Minister's been handed one of those ones that literally floats around and bangs around in the wind with every draft. I have to say, though, this is the second time in 2 days that Boris Johnson has a problem with an umbrella. The day before, he was given an interview in which he got soaked because his umbrella was so small.
Tiny. Who's in charge of this?
I think it does slightly feed into the perception that Boris Johnson... it's a bit like that picture, do you remember they took of the back of his car when he was leaving his house one day?
Yeah,
it was just littered with rubbish. They said that Boris is not necessarily kind of in touch with his kind of presentation and personal... But
that's partly deliberate, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what and was that event the forum to sort of showcase your sort of your bumbling, baboonish tendencies?
I think Rosie's right in this. He didn't set out to do it, but it's a little uncouth. It's such a sombre event, possibly.
But what was he supposed to do? Just sort of let it go, and then how can you elegantly put back together?
To be fair,
it's a nightmare when it happens.
You can't. How do you do it?
He did at one stage offer it to Priti Patel, who clearly knew what was coming and said no.
And then you won't be able to see
I'll sit in the rain.
Priti Patel has got quite a smirk on her face that she avoided the brolly fiasco.
Rebecca, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
We'll see you a little later on the programme.
Never dull.